Good afternoon, friends. Continuing on with the brake system, we're going to remove this rear brake today. Now these are fairly simple. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge because there's some things in the way. These old lines are pretty gross. This one did leak and it was repaired with some electrical tape, which I thought was a neat kind of repair. Not sure why anyone would do that, but that's something that someone chose to do. Anyway, we'll go ahead and get after it. When it comes to removing the rear brake, it's actually pretty straightforward. You have your brake line here, you have your axle and axle nut right here, you have your brake stabilizing arm here, and then there's a castle nut and bolt right here. These will have to come undone. This will stay in place as your pivot bolt here. You'll have to take the axle out and then you'll be able to slide the whole apparatus out the back of the bike. But first we're going to start with this brake line. Knowing that this thing is in really bad shape, that it leaks right here at this junction, I know that this line is not good and I don't want to keep it. And I don't want to sell it to anybody else because it's, in my mind, it's worthless. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to loosen this first. With the brake line out of the way, we're going to go ahead and loosen up this axle nut here. And for that, I have my giant Milwaukee wrench. This is a 15-inch wrench. This thing, I use it all the time. It's super great and works really well for this type of application. With the axle ready to be removed, we're going to go ahead and work on this castle nut and bolt right here on the brake arm. They both should be a 3/4 inch nut and bolt. And this is already loose. This did not have its cotter key in it, so we'll go ahead and back this out. Of course, we'll put our hardware back together. That way we keep everything just the way it came. Next, we'll have to go ahead and push this axle out of the way, and I may be able to move this by hand. Thankfully, it's greased up enough to where I can do that. With the axle out of the way, we can go ahead and lift the brake up and position it to come out. And that, of course, is how you remove the rear brake on one of these. Now, I know this is an aftermarket brake. This is a GMA style brake. These are super nice. I really like them. They provide a ton of stopping power. And honestly, if you're looking to upgrade your brake system, I'd highly recommend one of these. The biggest thing to keep in mind is make sure the spacer stays with it. Now, I know you can get these. You can buy these separately. They do cost quite a bit when you buy them separately. So I like to keep these things together. You know, of course, I'll sell it with that. That way it has the brake and the spacer and it's ready to be set up on any bike. And since we're not ready to remove the rear wheel yet, I'm going to go ahead and put the axle back through just to kind of hold everything in place for now. Now, I understand that there is not a spacer here, and that's something you're going to want to keep in mind. If you're going to wheel the bike around, this wheel is going to want to move now because there's nothing holding it or preventing it from moving side to side. So I'm not going to move this bike. I'm actually going to leave it on this lift, and we're going to continue tearing this thing down. I'm just going to put this in place for now just to hold it together so I don't lose anything, and that way everything's buttoned up. Lastly, we'll go ahead and get this line out of the way. Like I said, this brake line is not in good condition. I will not be reusing it, but I want it off the bike so I can throw it away. These sometimes have a flathead screw holding them in place, and other times they have a 3/8 inch bolt. This one has screws. Thankfully, these are so far going to come out nicely. This one is threaded from the underside up through the swing arm. With the screws out of the way, we can go ahead and pull this line straight out and we'll put it right in the recycle bin. Changing a rear brake on one of these old shovel heads is usually pretty straightforward. Whether it's the banana caliper or an upgraded version, usually they kind of come off and go on pretty easily. And as you can see, it's a pretty simple step-by-step process to get one of these removed. Obviously, reverse the application here. You can put it back on the same way and then go ahead and bleed brakes and it's ready to rock and roll. We're going to continue on the back end of this bike here. I'm going to focus on taking the rest of the rear of this apart. I'd like to get the shocks off next, the fender struts, fender, rear wheel, and then ultimately the rear swing arm. Once I have those done, we'll work our way forward and then we'll get the rest of the front of the bike taken apart. Another short one for the day. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like, give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. If you have questions or comments, drop them in the comment section below. I like talking about this bike and tearing it down, and having a good conversation with you guys has been really enjoyable. Of course, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit that subscribe button. This bike is coming apart. There's a lot of videos coming out on it, and of course you don't want to miss anything, so you're going to want to be subscribed. Well, friends, that's it for this one. We'll catch you next time.